So have you ever tried to focus at work after sleeping poorly the night before? It's extremely difficult. Your attention drifts and your thinking is scattered. The reason is that you're in a biochemical battle with your own body. You're trying to will concentration and your chemicals are willing distraction. You're trying to push forward while your biology is pulling you back. Well, the exact same thing happens when you do work you don't care about. Your psyche resists. Your psyche wants to be gripped and fulfilled by what it does. And if you subject it to monotony, it short circuits. Humans have a natural curiosity that, when denied, creates a psychic rot. You may have heard of the old Chinese practice of foot binding, breaking and reshaping young girls' feet to make them more dainty. Small, intricately bound feet were a mark of high status, that proof that a woman was so privileged that she didn't have to walk far or work. The wage worker does the same thing to their mind, essentially. Instead of letting their thoughts stretch and wander and form their own natural shape, they're hamstrung to serve an artificial function. And just like those bound feet, your creative and mental muscles atrophy over time. Your natural curiosity, which was once enchanted and animated, just becomes smaller and weaker. And at some point, every person wakes up to this fact, usually after years of betraying their instinct for authenticity. And the symptoms of their self-abandonment become impossible to ignore. Life just doesn't feel the same. Things are hollow. They drift through their days, living a checklist life, and they experience bursts of chronic exhaustion and dissatisfaction. This is your soul sending you a distress signal that your talents and your life force are being cannibalized. And the more you ignore this cannibalization, the more you feel drained, not just at the end of the workday, but at the core of your being. And no amount of discipline, productivity hacks, or caffeine are going to prevent the psychic rot from festering. Necessity might carry you for a year, even a decade, if the money and status are intoxicating enough. But beneath it all, there's going to be a slow-moving erosion of your identity. Human beings have two sets of needs, the animal and the existential. And once you have your animal needs of food and shelter met, that's essentially when human life begins. Mental health comes from having your existential needs met. Are you free to pursue your curiosity? Are you engaged in meaningful work? Are you connected and loved? And a society where the majority of people are perpetually trapped in meeting their animal needs is profoundly sick. Now, in order to live with this insanity, we've invented the greatest lie of modern life, that enduring meaninglessness is in itself meaningful. Enduring monotonous work is something noble. And this great lie is peddled among self-help coaches and gurus, and even well-meaning friends and family. You're told, be grateful you have a job. Not everyone does. You should see this as an opportunity to grow. Never mind that these same people would sell their grandmother to escape that arrangement themselves. Henry David Thoreau delivered actually what might be the most brutal observation in human history. On his morning walks, he would pass by laborers engaged in some rote task. And when he would return in the late afternoon, he'd find them repeating the same task. His conclusion, that we should, without irony, applaud such a person for not ending their own life. Wage work, of course, has external benefits. You might be gaining technical skills and providing for a family, but never fool yourself into thinking that the external benefit will outweigh the internal deterioration. There's a cascade of profoundly negative effects that happen to a person the longer they sacrifice portions of their life to wage work. You'll slowly care less about meaning, curiosity, creativity, and wisdom as you routinely shelf your true self in order to excel as a careerist. Your creative and intellectual muscles atrophy. A creeping sense of apathy and dread sets in, manifesting itself in anxiety and depression. And you become more hedonistic. Free time becomes sedation time. Evenings and weekends become an exercise in escapism, a desperate attempt to recover yourself that's been annihilated during the working hours. As I've argued elsewhere, at the core of our meaning crisis is the structure of modern work. No one can build a truly great life without a significant degree of autonomy and leisure, something which is incredibly difficult to do when you're under the control of another person. When we're alienated from our labor, when our best creative energies are spent on meaningless projects that serve someone else's vision, we experience profound psychological estrangement. Most people feel that their true selves exist only outside of work, which means they're only themselves for a tiny portion of their lives. They live for the weekend or for the evening when they can finally pursue what they want, while the rest of their lives are put on hold. This fragmentation between who I am and what I do erodes any sense of a coherent identity. So modern work doesn't just alienate, it imposes a kind of low-grade schizophrenia on all of us. Meaningful work generates a natural momentum. Focus comes effortlessly, creativity flourishes, and our actions become animated, whereas meaningless work generates an internal friction. The real cost of wage work isn't just your time, your exhaustion, or even your creativity. It's that over time, you will forget who you really are.